So, good afternoon to everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much for giving us the space to discuss a very critical point in the AI journey. I think before we start, it is important for me to acknowledge the fellow speakers and panelists who have joined from various industries. They are bringing their expertise, their insights on this topic today. Perfect. So, with that said, I think let me set the context of our discussion. Uh, I think we are very aware that AI agents are literally reshaping the industries today. We are standing at the brink of the next big wave of AI, and it's imperative to accept that they will, and it's already the shift is very visible, the way the enterprises are shifting the way they operate today. With that said, I would like to share a very key priorities that have been shared by the analysts, research analysts groups. I think it's important for us to reflect on that. I will just give it a quick read. 40% of enterprise applications will embed task specific AI agents in 2026. We're already seeing that happening. By 2028, nearly 90% of B2B buying decisions could be mediated by AI agents. And by 2029, AI agents may resolve up to 80% of routine customer service interactions. Now, all this that is happening as an AI journey today, it's not happening in a silo. It is influenced by three main factors, which I think you're aware of already, which is to do with geopolitics, technology sovereignty, and this global competition of AI leadership. It's clearly visible. With that said, Gartner came out with something very important and something that we should take it into consideration. And that's why we are here today in this panel discussion. Gartner cautions that over 40% of agentic AI projects could fail by 2027, not because of technology, it's very obvious, but due to weak governance, fragile data foundations, and unclear business value. These three key points are very visible, and we cannot deny that. And hence, today we take shape in our panel discussions, which is talking about agents in production, what actually works, what breaks when organizations try to scale them. So, let me quickly start with the first generic question that has come up. I think all of you all are aware that we had released a open question book for everybody to ask your questions. And out of that, we have shortlisted a couple of them. And the first generic question that I would ask the panelists, each one of you to share your views. We can start with Zilna's. Um, it says that what does an AI agent truly, or when does an AI agent truly move from a prototype to a production agent? And what is the biggest difference between a demo and production ready deployment?
Okay, so it's quite an easy to answer question for me. Uh, the agent moved from prototype to production grade agent when you actually see a business value out of it. Because typically how it starts, you end up doing some prompting, you deploy some code. At the end of the day, you have some basic UI or something working in your services, but unless it can show the real business value, the savings and optimizations for your company, I would not consider it production. And yeah, additional thing to consider it production, you need to make sure that you have like at least basic observability setup, because then all we do, like what we did in the past, just call APIs and make use of them, it's all fine. But when the agent starts calling hundreds or thousands of APIs, you have no observability, no budgeting of how much money it will burn. It will not only turn into a production incident, it will turn into something that can just close down your company.
Thank you. That makes sense. What is your thoughts? What is your thoughts, Pramod?
Yeah, I'll take a simple analogy. Maybe when your test drive converts into a car being parked in your garage, that's moving from demo to production. Right? And agents, unless it is embedded in a business process flow, it is not of impact or value to the business. It still is a sort of a tool to play around with. Unless if it breaks down, it impacts your business operations. It's not in production yet. To add to it, someone has to also own in terms of accountability, That who's overseeing those agents? What is the observability and evaluation frameworks around it that allows you to truly use those agents to its capabilities? I think for me, that's the distinction.
Thanks, Pramod. Kaushik, your thoughts?
Yeah. So I would say it depends on the kind of use case you are trying to solve. If the use case is very much internal, where the if the agent can go wrong, the cost of making a wrong decisions by agent is not too high, you can try it out and you can see how the agents are decisioning it. If the cost of making a decision by agents are super high and it could impact your reputation, it could impact your governance and all sorts of regulations, compliance, you would like to take time to build trust on the system that you have built and gradually you want to roll out. For the second type of use case, which is bit tricky, my go-to approach is going to be human in the loop. We are not going to implement whatever the AI agent is saying directly, changing my production data, directly impacting my customer interactions, the way the customer interacts. Is always going to be agent is going to be act as a companion of the person who is acting on the field. So human in the loop for me for a second phase of use case where agents are in the critical path of the customer journey is going to be the go-to use case for now, till I build some of the more trust on the AI agent area. Maybe after a couple of years we can think of a AI agent without human in the loop can take a decision by their own and it is directly impacting my customer journey.
I think I have a leading question, and I'll then pass it to Jose for that. Since you spoke about human in the loop, which is very critical, which is the sector or an industry today, just for the benefit of audience, who's adopting these agents without much delay? Because I think certain segments like finance, tax, and legal, they are taking time to them into production. So what is your thoughts on which particular sector, industry? Anybody can pick up this question and not necessarily do it. Any particular sector that is adopting AI agents faster today in this world?
Yeah, from my perspective, I guess most of us who are trying to book flights or like using Travel Park, Navan, or some other application, like you probably see where it's most being adopted. Sometimes it's quite annoying, probably because companies did it without human in the loop. We just rolled out agents, dropped all the data to the LLMs and just trust the output, but the end user experience is terrible. So that's where I see it being rolled out the most, is like on this knowledge kind of work for the customer support scenarios. And if it's rolled out just blindly with no human in the loop, with no face for checking if the responses are good, if the quality is good, all's going to be miserable for the end user.
I'll just add one more point.
Sure, Kaushik.
One area specifically to industry, the content generation industry, be it
Perfect.
text, be it video, be it audio, where you can go fast. And we know like there are
Adoption is
couple of
faster,
yeah
you mean?
the productionizing is faster, and also like there are dedicated team who can do the editing, so
Mm.
that even if like the AI is gone somewhere wrong, there is a catch that there is a guardrails, I would say,
Mm.
in the form of human doing the editing and finding out the error and fixing it accordingly. So content generation is something which is rapidly evolving with the AI agents.
Fantastic, fantastic. That was a very, I mean, I was looking forward for something like that, which is very on the thing. Now, Jose, I think I still want you to continue on the demo and
Sure.
prototypes. Please go ahead.
So if you ask your team, what if you allow your agent to run whole night when nobody's monitoring it? What is the worst possible thing it could do? If the answers makes you really uncomfortable, then the agent is not production ready.
Wow, that was a very simple way of explaining our acceptability.
So
Perfect.
there are three criteria I would say to
Hmm.
make it no more the agent could be production. The first is the data what is comes in is more of a live data, which means the team should be aware of all the decisions what it takes. It will have business impact. The second criteria what I say is it should have deterministic guardrails. What Nima said, deterministic guardrails. The third one, observability. Without observability, we cannot do anything. At any point of time, the agent or the engineers should be able to figure out what was the agent planned, what was the tools available at the point of time, why it made this choice, what was the input, what was the output. Only then we can be able to survive.
Perfect.
So to put the simple lines, in demo, we designed everything to work, and in production, it is built to challenges how it can fail easily.
Wow, that's nice. Actually, you answered the second part of the question, which was a generic that I had to flow through everyone. So, what is that one principle for making agents safer, useful, reliable, and scale um, for our audience to take away? So, what would that be? And I think some context you have already built in. So, Kaushik, Pramod, and
So
Sylvanas.
you mentioned observability, which I
Yes.
deeply agree with. But there is another part, like when you have employee in the company and like we're developing something, we want to use some external service. Typically, you have some budgeting for that external service, so the employee can just go and like send 1,000,000 SMS via Twilio, and like then you need to pay for it. So similar approach from my perspective should be taken with agents. So every agent you're deploying to production has to have some budget constraint set. So when it goes rogue or like it runs some buggy code, it doesn't turn into infinite amount of money spending machine.
Pramod, anything from you and Kaushik to add on to this one principle that
I
we take
think
away?
one of the thing, and I completely agree with my co-panelist, enforcing some of the strict schemas and contracts between agent handoffs, right? Otherwise, uh, the more number of agents you have in your production system, more difficult it becomes to actually trace back and pin down the cost to those API calls. Hence, a significant amount of observability becomes the key for you to really sustain these agentic systems. On top of it, you want to have a differentiation between control plane and execution plane. You need to have that those layers separated out. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to really distinguish between who's doing what versus who's controlling what. That's a very important setup for business applications which are built on agentic AI frameworks.
If I can,
Kaushik, you want to add something?
if I want to add a couple
Yeah,
of
go
points
ahead.
to
Go
that
ahead,
one,
please.
it's like every agents right now, what is built is to maximize the outcome when everything goes right.
Yes.
And nobody's thinking about what if something goes wrong, whether my system is ready. So one of the best solution, what I would say, or principle I would say is design a system for graceful degradation. Meaning, if it doesn't know what to do, it has to say, I do not know, instead of hallucinating.
Correct.
So put in simple words, please implement I do not know protocol.
Very nice. Very well said. Very well said.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So one more thing is basically the observability and the traceability is the key here. So put the observability and the traceability metrics specifically in the form of logs wherever possible, wherever. And before just like the era of this AI agent booms, if you see the typical microservice based observabilities are lower in nature. A typical call in a microservice will give you hardly 5, 6, maybe 10 logs or 10 traces. But with the coming in the AI agents era, a AI agent execution flow can have as much as 100 to 200 execution logs. So executions logs put wherever the execution logs are possible, and you are going to generate an enormous amount of data, and this data is going to be helpful when the next version of the AI agent you are going to release. You will be able to know where it is going wrong, where it is going right by analyzing the log data later on, and you can take controls accordingly. So put the executions logs observability wherever it is possible.
Perfect. And I think with this, yeah, sure, Zed. Sure.
So like putting logs is kind of fine, but the way I would approach it, and I can like disagree, would be like if you put logs to like 100 agents in the production environment, so you will have tons of logs that you will need to process. Another flow would be like taking the orchestrator agent, which knows like how to understand what each agent have done, and like flag you on that, flag your on-call teams, like trigger the incident. So like which is like a bit more scalable approach from my perspective. Because if in a team of my size, which is like 150 engineers, if every single of them does put extra logs and we just like start going to Grafana Cloud or whatever, none of the team members would be able to handle like a single on-call incident, because not only you will need to read through the logs, you will be missing the tools to actually interpret them.
Perfect. I think as we started from locks into simplifying and making it more, not making it more complex for execution, this brings us to the first segment of our panel questions, which is leading into infrastructure and technical scaling. So, Sylvanas, I'm going to come to you because this is going to be something very visible in my experience dealing with clients and transformation projects. When we start up with an ambitious prototype, it works fantastic in a controlled environment. As soon as it gets into production, with a lot of things that you just shared earlier to now today, it's very visible that their complexity starts when they get into production, right? And from the statement of can we build an agent, we get into the point where we say, can our infrastructure sustain this agent? And where exactly are we going to requiring to do a lot of forethoughts before we deploy it into production? So the first question that comes under this space is what infrastructure realities appear when agent traffic moves from pilot scale to production level demand? This is a question.
So I think we covered parts of this question like during this
Sounds
discussion. And the thing, I guess it's similar as with building web applications. When you build one API call, you have one successful request, you have integration with some banking transactions or something, it's all fine. It works fine with one request at one time. When you're building agents, it's kind of similar, but at way bigger scale. You run one prompt, it works, but if you run that prompt with like additional context, it might fail miserably. And worse things that could happen, which even happened like to me like last week, I was like building OpenClaw agent, and I was asking like, can you collect me Slack history on this particular customer account, and can you summarize what's your state? And the fun fact was, it started hallucinating the whole story. So what it means, like actually, that when you are doing them and going to a production and want to actually scale the agent, you need to test the prompt, you need to test the agent, you need to check when there is a kill switch if the data is going wrong, because if the agent especially for customer support starts responding something that might even damage your environment, so it will just get worse.
Yeah, so I'm going to link up a very interesting question that has come. From a cloud native perspective, how can teams avoid building agents that look impressive in demos but become too expensive and fragile to run?
Should I answer or?
It was a question for
Yeah,
you.
so the budgeting part which I mentioned previously is probably the best one. So
Okay.
you set the limit of how much agent can
Yes.
spend,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like the most simple thing. But of course, if you just set the limit and it fails, like you again need all the observability, alerting, and production grade paging to be able to react to that and fix it on time as well. Because is it a rollback of the agent? Is the agent rollbackable at all? There were enough tests ran when you were deploying the agent? Because in typical code scenarios, you run unit tests, end-to-end tests, but agent is a bit more like, environment where there are lots of side effects, and you actually need to run it on real data, because on the smog data, it might not even show up as an issue.
Yeah. So I'm going to take this to Jose right now. Um, we will come to this point of integrations, which are also a major challenge when it comes to infrastructure space. What fundamentally changes when organizations move from concept agent to an enterprise grade integration, right, across systems and workflows? So, what is your thoughts on that, Jose?
That's a really interesting question. And also currently we are facing a lot of challenges with this. I'll try to mention few. The moment we say we want to integrate to enterprise, we hit three major issues. Yeah. The first one is the data. The data
Correct.
is more messier than what we think. Yeah. So during the prototyping or demoing, we take a cleaned PDF or Markdown language to a RAG. The moment it goes to production or enterprise, you have hundreds of PDF documents. Some documents are scanned sideways, and there are some shared folders which no one visited some years. And there are some
monster
definitions
of
of
data.
customer ID which is mentioned 17 times in different ways.
Correct.
Yeah. Second major like challenge is the systems have opinions like
Okay.
people. Yeah. The moment I say I want to integrate to my enterprise, I have 10 systems. Some classic systems doesn't have an API. They say I cannot do.
Correct.
And there are some systems which has an API, but it would say you cannot do a lot of requests. It will come out with request failures because API rate limits.
Correct.
Yeah. And there are systems which is, say, for example, they can do a lot of things, but they not allow us to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the third major section on this line is, if even though we're doing everything on this when the reality comes to enterprise, what major things happens is, or the shift, what the thing happens is, earlier we used to ask the question, whether the agent will work.
Correct.
Nowadays, we are asking the question whether the environment is
Capable to
capable to have an agent,
work.
or if the environment is eligible to get an agent, because the
Perfect.
environment is so messy nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that brings to a point where I've seen, I think most of y'all will relate to it, where clients themselves are struggling to transform. They have this ambition to get into AI. They understand the journey, but not necessarily able to implement because of the legacy they carry. And most of their critical systems are sitting in the legacy systems and classic systems that they cannot translate easily. And they're struggling with this data transformation, data migration itself to start with, right? And that's where I think is a big heavy lifting for agents. Building an agent is great, but building it, bringing it to make the agent work and feeding the agent is where the challenge is.
Yeah. So what changes from moving from prototyping to environment is environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Perfect. With that, I'll go to Kaushik. Kaushik, before agents are allowed to interact with live systems and customer data, even at that stage, right? What are the non-negotiables enterprises must have in place? It's like a prerequisite. They should have it in place even before this happens.
Yeah. So
Beginning.
it's basically what we call as a allow list. It's not something by default agent is going to have access to all the controls that you're going to have to your production systems.
So it's like
You
a
are going,
guardrails, yes.
sorry.
It's like a guardrails for.
Yeah,
Guardrails.
guardrails. So it basically you're going to allow some of the stuff to AI agents, and AI agents is going to have the boundaries on which the AI agent is going to work. By default, the access is no for AI agents. You have to allow some of the systems, some of the RBAC layer of the some of the controls you're going to deliberately give to see how your agent is behaving. And one thing that I want to point out here, um, agents by design is a slow thinker. You remember one microservice APIs you develop, what is the typical latency that you expect? Couple of milliseconds. Even if like it goes up, it is 1 second is also like people are going to stare at it like a red eyes. 1 second, how can you say 1 second for a microservice API latency? A typical GPT call today takes approximately 4 to 5 seconds. And for AI agents, if you give a call to 4 to 5 times, that already 20 seconds gone for a GPT call
Absolutely.
only, or for LLM calls. Now the moment that you design an AI agent, you also have to keep in mind that the AI agents or AI systems are slow thinkers, and you have to cut down the latency. You have to have the deal with the latency. And with this latency, the integration you were talking about in the previous questions,
Yeah.
most of our legacy systems are not in a shape or form that they can handle a asynchronous process. Now, how exactly you are going to make sure the AI agents output are into feed into the legacy systems in a production environment? That is again a challenge. And with all of these things, when you make shipping a product AI agents from prototype to productions, these are the non-negotiables. These are the controls that you have to put. My AI agent is going to take 30 seconds, boss. I can't do anything. This is how the system is designed. So with this 30-second latency, is my integration system is capable enough to handle that output? If the answer is no, you have to find a different way. If the answer is yes, you have to find a way that the AI agent output is going to fit. This is one aspect of the integration. The other aspect I was just touching upon, the database is a secret thing, is a thing that you should protect. You should not allow any AI agent to do changes directly, specifically the write or the alterations and all. You cannot allow AI agents to change it directly. So one best approach that I personally taken in my area, I never give the permissions to AI agent to run any sorts of drop, alter, or insert statements. It's all about you just to select it. Another approach you could do it is basically separate the database, which is a costly affair. So you have to replicate the database and all. Even if like if something goes mistake in the database that you have given access to AI agent, you're still you can be safe. But yeah, so these are the non-negotiables that you always have to keep in your mind.
Perfect. You had to add in.
Yeah, I have to add like a funny story from last week. Like some of you probably know the OpenClaw framework. So that's for agent building. So I was building OpenClaw bot for my own Slack productivity kind of stuff. And I was about to share that bot with my colleagues just to realize that the bot has access not just to the public and private channels that I am at, but like to my direct messages as well. So if anyone who would have joined my bot channel, we would have been able to just query whatever we want and would get messages out of my direct chats just because initially it didn't have like limitation for role-based access and yeah, it would have been a funny thing.
Yeah, that was a good, interesting spin on that. But I think, as Zalmanas and Kaushik, you have been touching on this. I think we discussed it to some extent in our previous, but I still feel we need to dive a little deeper because agents don't only process data, they trigger workflows. You know, you're literally giving them the accountability to trigger workflows, to talk to customers, and to also influence our outcome and decisions, right? So there is an amount of power you're handing off to them, right? With that said, how critical is going beyond integration and infrastructure? Now we are getting into engineering reliability and risk. Very critical part. Now, as developers, when we are getting into the systems to try to develop these agents, how and enthusiastic we are about building it and making it work, thinking about the business and the risk angles becomes very, very critical. And it can only be fulfilled by the domain and the business leaders who are coming inside and questioning the right stuff before you start building. Now, bringing you to the risk management and engineering reliability segment of our discussion, Jose, from an engineering perspective, what design engineering patterns have you seen work well when teams try to scale these agents reliably?
Before going to say what works well, I will say what should not be done.
Okay.
So now everyone is trying to create God agent,
Yeah.
an agent which has all the rights, all the privileges, all the possibilities it can do. So I would say should not do it. Now I'll tell what should be done. Yeah. So I would say like dilute agents into simpler micro agents with deterministic capabilities. Let's say, for example, an orchestrator agent can orchestrate, a retrieval agent can retrieve, an actionable agent can take actions. What are the benefits? If something goes wrong, then it's easy to find out which agents caused the issue. If you know which agents caused the issue, we can able to easily fix it. If we're able to easily fix it, we also can version control those agents, and we also can set a lot of API rate limits. And another best practice, what I recommend is, since we know all these LLMs are non-deterministic in nature, but since we are into engineering, we need deterministic solutions. And we already have a lot of automations in place. So what currently I would recommend is, when you get a prompt, you make use of LLMs to plan it. Yeah. So that you get ABC plans. Once you know what to do, the workflows you have to call deterministic workflows, call existing scripts, so that it is stable. And as I said also previously, if it is not working out well, we need to have a plan to come out of it. Not like if a tool call fails, I should not keep on repeating because it is not good for it.
Perfect. It's very interesting aspects. I would like to lead that into Pramod. There's a question for you, Pramod, where it says the leadership and strategy side. What is the most common executive mistakes organizations make when they try to scale agents quickly? Given to lead from where Jose has left it, and if you could reflect on that.
Yeah, scaling is a very common sort of requirement across businesses and enterprise, right? You want to scale that impact through agents as quickly as possible, but there are concerns around it, and I'll tell you some of the practical ones that I've seen. I've seen leaders often underestimating the operational complexities around these agentic AI applications and
Perfect.
overestimating the model capabilities. I think to some level they think this is more of a plug and play tool, but in reality it's a distributed system because you are talking to multiple systems, classical or legacy systems, but also some of the uh, systems which could be external to your enterprise, right? You might be
Absolutely.
procuring some external data on which you want to have additional set of guardrails when agents are interacting with those. Second is and this is bit non-technical but very critical, is the change management. At
Yeah.
the end of the day,
Absolutely.
the users who are going to use these tools needs to be educated that how these tools operate and how they can get the best out of those. And hence, unless you train them, the adoption would remain very low and you won't get to the ROI. And third, I think all of the co-panelists touched on that, is the infra and the cost implications.
Yeah.
these are new systems, right? You can scale your agents, but some of the things are gonna scale with those. One of which is cost, and you can't have a proper system in place without pre-planning the implications with respect to how much opex going to be to run these systems, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's really worth building these systems and scaling this if the value is not tangible. I think those are some of the risks that I see.
I would like to add just like small technical comment to that because you mentioned like scaling of agents, you'll have budget restrictions, and one thing like out of what you said for me, like what rings my bell is lots of companies when are pushing for this agentic development, they usually skip the training part, meaning like the engineers are not well trained to make the best use of it. They will try to brute force their way with like Opus, the best model in the industry for the basic tasks, where like using a smaller one would fit. And what Panelists also covered was like you don't really need like the biggest model for every task. That's where some of the guardrails come. But if you have particular agent who is just like scanning one PDF document, you really don't need Opus for that. You can like find some DeepSeek OCR or some other model, and this should be also like company level restrictions, which agents and which models you can pair them.
And important part is the regulatory requirements. You can build these agents, but they have to meet those requirements with respect to compliance and regulatory requirements, right? And that's where human in loop becomes very important. You can't just build and scale these systems without having proper human in loop validation and authorization, even on content generation that you touched upon. For a healthcare or a pharma company, content creation is not a challenge. You can create content at scale, but someone has to review and validate it for it to reach to the end customer, whether it's B2B or B2C. So the bottleneck becomes the human capabilities to review the content that is being generated by AI.
Perfect. I think it's a holistic response to this area. I wanted to introduce this one topic, Kaushik, to do about with RAG, right? Now, where does retrieval augmented generation improve outcomes? And where can it actually introduce risk?
So RAG is a fantastic tool. There are no doubt about it. Once you start using a LLM has a inbuilt knowledge, what you call as a parametric memory. And if you have to extend the knowledge of LLM beyond the parametric memory, you have to inject the your personalized data or any source of data which is not being used to train the LLMs. And RAG is the go-to tool for us. You have to put a RBAC, role-based access control, on the documents. Your RAG pipeline is going to track that the document is going to chunk it, store in vector database. It is never going to discriminate what document should be visible to which set of customers or which set of our internal employees. So the RAG based pipelines, once it is run, on top of that, you have to have a proper RBAC, role based access control, on a document level, which are the document that you are supposed to show to which sort of user base. That itself is a huge challenge. That itself, because the kind of documents that you're going to process is going to be changing in a variety of the applications. The variety in the documents is going to be huge. So the RBAC has to be very, very strong in order to implement a RAG. Without the RBAC, your RAG is going to crash like anything. Even if like it's processed fast enough to chunk the document, even if like giving a fantastic answer, definitely you don't want it to be in a situation where junior developer gets access of your HR database and can see your senior leadership salary. You definitely don't want it to be in the situation.
True that. Where if leadership had to make one major budget priority when scaling agents, where should that investment go first?
I mean, it's hard to pin down just one. I'll probably call out two areas
Go for it.
which should be the priority for
Yeah.
the business. One definitely is investing, I would say over investing in the evaluation frameworks for these agentic
Okay.
applications.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless you have those sorted out, you are just going on a blind path. Like you really don't know what you are taking on, because you can invest and at the other end you would realize these agents don't work, they don't self learn, and they are really breaking silently, which is impacting your business.
Mm.
So these two areas I would say should definitely prioritize.
Uh, uh, Thanks for that point. And this gives me a thought on how these operating models, you slightly touched about that sometime earlier. organizations are spending a lot of time in building these agents. Of course, the areas that you mentioned, they're spending a lot of time there, trying to invest, but not necessarily, in my experience, that I feel they are showing how they govern the agent. How are they going to operate after the agent gets into production? Who's going to own it? How are they going to scale it? Who's going to make the changes and make sure that the agent is, completely upgrading itself continuously, right? Because Kaushik mentioned about the risk about all these regulatory laws. Coming from a firm that is into audit, regulatory, etc., our regulations keep changing per region, and it's far too fast with all this geopolitics that's happening. It keeping up with it itself is a big deal. And when you are restricting agents, when you're trying to confine them into a path of intelligence, it becomes extremely difficult for them to adapt to these changes. Now, that's where this operating model comes into play, Pramod. So, what is your thoughts on that? Any one of y'all can take it up and answer.
Maybe I'll just it's think of this as an end-to-end process. It's not one-time activity that you can define an agent and leave it as is.
Correct.
It's an ongoing activity where you really you go with the agent definition template,
Perfect.
which you have flexibility to change the ingredients of, but don't change the template as is. So you have a agent objective. What are those boundaries? What are those input and output schemas, right? How do they get tracked? Everything has to be followed across the organization, every agent that is being created.
Yeah.
At the same time, the guardrails or the context that you give to the agents with respect to the regulatory or compliance requirements,
Yeah.
it really depends on the use case.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
for that particular use case, if it is cross function operating within different functions, you have to have internal regulation requirements. But if it's a sort of a more universal agent,
Yeah.
you have to have a global lens on it, that what it can do and where it cannot be. Because on content creation, IP infringement can become a huge issue
Absolutely.
because you're using LLM
Yes.
to generate content or pictures or images or text, but
Yes.
you really don't know where it's coming from.
Exactly.
Hence, you run into a risk of not able to validate those claims.
Perfect. Perfect. It makes sense.
From my side, I would probably look at it like when you say agents, like it's natural for us, it's like code and things like that. But when you start looking to agents like an employee of your company, suddenly you start seeing like the hierarchical order where like there is one who is good at content creation, there is someone overlooking it, there is someone setting these boundaries, there is someone putting agent on performance improvement plan if it's not doing good. There is like additional orchestrator who is like learning agent the new skills and coping with these things. So I try to look at from this type of lens.
Perfect. So I think with that said, we'll move into the next segment, which is called the operational deep dives. Now, in one of the areas that I've seen significant, what do I say? There's no clarity, is the business value they want to derive out of it, right? When such business value definitions are not very clear, probing it at what stage will help, right? That's the first part of the question. The second part is when we are in firms which are very, very conservative about rolling out these agents inside their, very critical processes, they are very restrictive about their own domain knowledge they want to share. They want to keep it very human dependent. So, human in the loop is becoming a major part of that entire solution. And the third part, I'll come to your part, which is you spoke about 3 stages. What is the timeline you think that on an average it takes to really build a confidence for a simple agent and not a complex one, right? So if we could break that question and any one of you all can answer that.
Maybe I can touch upon this. So you mentioned that the confidence needs to be built up
Yes.
on the AI agents. So what Josh was mentioning is absolutely right. You have to have a certain list of checklist what you can do to before making it to production and what are the checks and balances you want to do. Another generic approach, if you see from a learning standpoint from every anything, you have to keep building the system to know where it can fail. Okay. When I can give an analogy of think about when you start driving, you always be in a confusion. Shall I go ahead? Shall I overtake it? And gradually you learn things stuffs. Now you are driving in Bangalore traffic. It's a journey that you have. Yeah, it's a journey basically. So in the and you
Very good
cope up
analogy.
with this journey, and you know that I have to learn driving. There are no other way. So similarly here, you have to deal with these AI agents. You have to deal with the AI systems going forward. There are no way that you can skip this learning and you can sustain in the industry. That is I think everyone is going to agree on this. And to way to get the confidence where the AI agents can go wrong on how the AI agents going to behave is basically start building AI agents whenever it's possible. Don't give the access to AI agent to production data. That is one thing that you should always avoid. But start building stuff so that you can grab the things so easily. So you are building the confidence over the systems. That is one way that you can actually try it out right away to get the confidence on the AI systems.
Pramod, on the business value definitions that usually engineering teams struggles with, because they say we want this and they are not literally able to define it to that end point for an agent to be built successfully. What is your take on that? How do you try to gather that content? What is the best way to articulate the business value upfront for an agent build?
I think it stems from, first of all, within a company, right? And I'll take any pharma company or a consumer goods company or manufacturing firm. It has to stem from which function is really upbeat about having these capabilities, right? So function has to have that buying that this is going to create an impact for me downstream, right? So that one buying is very important, because then you can pin down which use case would actually needs to be prioritized to give you that value. You can't just simply create agents for sake of creating agents and just
Yeah.
attach simple workflows. That would not move the needle. If you really want to move the needle for a business in tangible terms,
Hmm.
you have to identify and prioritize which use case you should go after,
Exactly.
right? And then have a business case created and aligned with the stakeholders
Stakeholders.
before you start writing first line of code.
Absolutely.
And you have to have a work plan, who are going to be my broad set of users, who is going to be the sponsor, and what it would take in terms of capex and opex for me to successfully implement this solution.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's a process change through a technical intervention. It's
Correct.
not a technical implementation.
Hmm.
So that's how I would look at it.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You had a
I
point?
think I would add, like from my side, a bit less of a business-oriented comment is like previously we called people engineers and like we are developing software. Now, like but with the shift happening, like I think everyone will need to become way more business-oriented, like a product engineer and like more overlap with business, understanding how business works. In our company, it's quite easy because it's business is infrastructure and that kind of management. In
Correct.
pharma companies, it would mean that potentially some of your engineers will need to be able to go up a stack and like closer to the business, understanding the problems we are solving. Because with agents, you're not building just automation, like you're trying to spin up another employee within the company. And if someone who is building it has no clue, we will not gonna build good agent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this intermediaries between actual development of the codes and proper technical engineers and business leaders, we need this in between talent that can orchestrate and explain the business requirement to the technical team and understand the technical language and back to the business. These translators is the current gap that we are seeing, and that's what most of our discussions are being resonated. So as developers, as technical leaders, that you are building up these knowledge on the new technologies and how you're building agents, everything, all the codes, it's extremely imperative that you build the knowledge of business as well. Domains, sectors, and industries is a very critical requirement right now. And I think product managers are playing some contextual role in that. But I think this will become a very key requirement going forward. Even to translate the business requirement to an agent, we need this language experts who understand the business language, who can feed inside the technology. With that said, I would open up the question to Kaushik. Kaushik, I know you come from this finance background, okay? And I've worked with FMS before, and I know how difficult it is to penetrate their systems. everybody and anybody asks us, please, if you're putting an agent, put it on my system. Don't build it outside my system. This is a universal issue that's happening across banks and other places. So, Kaushik, particularly the finance and have a very high stakes in the environment, right? One wrong transaction and you have to pay, right? So, what failure modes do organizations underestimate when they get into this kind of scaling? When they start, they accept it, they're being positive about it, they want to move forward, but they underestimate something and then it becomes our problem to solve. So what is that you've
Yeah,
seen?
so I always feel scary when some stakeholder come to me and getting overexcited about any AI projects. That's give me a scary thing. You should be excited about the AI projects and all, but the moment that you become overexcited, that's become a challenge for me. Now, since I becomes to a very regulated industry, there are plenty of challenges. I'll take one by one. The first challenges that I see is basically integration of AI systems into the core legacy systems. The banking systems are core legacy systems. Nobody is going to dare to touch those core systems because it's probably running for 15-20 years without having so much difficulties. Now, once you have this AI agent ready and integrating those AI agents in the core legacy systems, that is, we generally don't consider the integration effort as massively as possible, but it's a challenge. And sometimes, because of the integration issue, we might have to drop some of the AI use cases. That is the first challenge. The second challenge is basically the regulations. You cannot just put AI agents wherever you think that it is going to be ROI generation. ROI generation, you might get a temporary benefit of getting some of the brownie point of quick disbursement of the loans, quick ROIs and all. But the moment the something will grow big, RBI is going to catch you definitely. Today or tomorrow, if your AI agents are not, your AI agents are auditable. That's the first thing. If any systems, any IT systems, including the AI systems, if you put into the core customer approval journey, RBI is going to audit you. RBI is going to audit those systems also. If they sees that your systems are not enough deterministics, by design AI is probabilistic. RBI is going to measure how deterministics your systems are. So that's a completely different parameters RBI is going to audit your systems. So if you are unable to explain those things, you are going to face some of the challenges to convince the RBI auditor. So the controllability is one thing that you always think before implementing any of the things. And the first thing is basically don't put AI agents in the critical journey. Even if like you're putting it, put it in the human in the loop. That is a thumb rule generally we try. Nowadays we are trying to follow. We don't give autonomy so much to AI agents so that the AI agent can do whatever they want. So that's the autonomy that you have restricted. The third thing is basically, I think we touch upon, he was touching upon one thing, the cost part. Currently, I think industry is in FOMO mode, fear of missing out. If I'm
Absolutely.
not able to do this, maybe I'm going to lagging behind. That's the reason that nobody is asking about me my cloud cost today. So everyone knows that you have to invest in a certain days, but the days are coming. I don't know when the days will come. The days are coming. And the days are coming nearby, and where you have to justify the cloud cost that you're going to incur. And
Absolutely.
currently building the systems, AI systems in the production environment and running it is a costly cloud affair. It's a costly affairs, and the cloud cost are going up and up. Nobody's asking me the question. That's why we are not discussing. But the days are coming when people are going to start asking
Yeah, they
and
will.
justify the cost,
Yeah, yeah.
and that will be a painful, that will be uncomfortable questions. And I have spent so much, so and so $1,000, or not in thousands, it's in couple of millions dollars, and I'm putting it on a yearly budget, and I'm not able to justify the ROI. That's the question that I try to.
Absolutely.
I'll definitely, if I have the options, I'm going to definitely avoid those questions. So these are the three things we have to keep in mind.
Thanks, Kaushik. That was helpful. So I think ROI is pretty much everything happens, all new stuff will come, but where's my investment? What's my returns? Where is it? Right? That's a very $1 billion question. Now, Ziminas, did you have anything to add to that?
No, like I would have added extra information to what FOMO means for companies. So for one of them is like missing out on developing new fancy things, or for
Yeah.
some of them it might mean extinction event. Because like if all of your competition is like developing new features with agents, it means like you will not only miss on learning technology, you might miss on the whole business.
Absolutely. The business rush is really high, and there is a lot of opportunities. With that said, I would like to open up for audience questions. Anybody in the audience has any question, please raise your hands and stand up. We could always pass the mic. We do have a couple of minutes left, and you can ask your question.
Anyone having any question? Yeah.
Okay.
Um, First of all, this
Mic,
session
mic,
was
mic. Keep it closer to you. Keep it
yeah
closer to you.
yeah fine. This session was too much of interactive kind of like which I wanted to seen in the office actually. The perspectives which you said, right? Building an agentic kind of thing, everyone can build it. But when it goes for a production, right, there are a lot of things. It's all about the data, what you pass, the government rules, regulations, it's game changing. Even you can't send the phone number and your name also to the AI missions. There will be a lot of things. And the content which promotes it, right, the content infringement. Yeah, the content you can't reuse the content which is already generated. And the things which you are pointing, right, the old legacy systems which already been there, yeah, we can't go with an agentic because those systems may fail at any point of time because of some kind of API limit or whatever the thing. But right now, if you see in the market right now, they are implementing a lot of MCPs where they are standardizing the applications. Like if you take for a Jira or whatever the things, right? They have dedicated systems now. Like they wantedly making sure like this application, if it want to be make sure they are building their own APIs in the backend where it will work exactly. That's that things right now. If you see the agentic, there's already been implemented. But when you are building these kind of applications in the product scale, you have to think all the things. It's all about the things like where you are connecting your data, the content infringement, and mainly the which once you have said right, the it's all about the pricing. It's all about the pricing. It's all about the observability kind of thing. These things will really matter. And the what businesses thinks actually is like, see, I'm putting 1 crore of amount. Where is my investment? See, agents are very like if you ask a single question, it takes a lot of time to first for the latency, and it is too much of cost perspective kind of things also comes into matter. But this session was really very which for people who was wanted to build for an agentic kind of thing. AI can everyone build rack kind of things, everything can build. But when it comes for an agentic kind of solutions, man, these things matters, which I wanted, which wanted to tell to everyone also here.
Thank you so much. Did you really have a question behind that for
It
us?
was a trick.
Yeah, because I was building this kind of application actually,
Oh,
my
okay.
own startup. So when you
Okay.
told these all pointers, no? Yeah, I was aware of this particular thing and which I don't know, which I learned from here.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
yeah,
Thank you.
that was just wanted to. Yeah, thanks.
That was wonderful. Anyone else want to go for the question?
Yeah, this question is more to Hima, you and Kaushik. So the reason why I say this because some of the BFS segments are quite regulated. Now, when you look for open source, this being a forum wherein, and we are also part of the CNCF community, how is your adoption? I mean, how do you look at the adoption of these open source offerings, which are incubating and going to production? OpenTel being one of them. There are so many other. So how do you see the future of this adoption being more open?
Okay, Kaushik, you go for the question, then I'll take it.
Generally, what we do, I'll tell you the story of Pinamal Finance, the company I belongs to. We started this journey 2023 Feb March, so it's almost more than 3 years. We started with a GPT 3.5, and we know the kind of hallucination that case is a scary thing. And we initially started with building the internal applications to our own employees, a little bit of co-pilot kind of thing. And co-pilot was not that a popular time that time, but it's more of a companion. It's more of a co-pilot kind of things we used to inject. And we have nowadays like co-pilot of every business functions, and it is mature immensely. We start building the internal application so we can grow the confidence on this AI. And now we have moved beyond the phase of co-pilot. Now we are trying to implement AI systems directly into the customer decisioning, obviously human in the loop. There are no such AI system runs today which is anonymous for taking decisions. We wanted to deliberately, we don't want to fall into that trap. It's look shiny, it's look intellectually, it's a proud moment for us if we build that kind of system. We know we are capable of, but we are just trying to test the depth of the water gradually since we build enough confidence. And coming to your second part of this open source, generally we try to avoid open source. We as a team we have taken a decisions that we are not going to try out any candy that is out in the market. We have to choose which candy is suitable for us, and we're going to go ahead with this. That is the reason that even if like the open source systems, and nowadays like open source models are being their capability is far more efficient. Some of the matrices they are they are way better than the proprietary models of Gemini and OpenAIs and all. Having said so, at least Gemini or OpenAI or any sorts of proprietary models gives me a confidence that there are some big guy behind it. In the open source, you never know who is the developer. If some random guy has built some model and put it in the GitHub, I'm not here to try that out. I can try it out on my personal space just to test the depth of the water, just to try out, play out things. I have done enough on this, but literally open source models and all, I don't think that we should give a try right away. Even if like you wanted to give a try, you bring that model file and you deploy it in your own cloud, and you secluded the environment from a outsource, and then in a closed environment you can do a try. But we are a bit restrictive in nature to try out open source models.
Sure.
I can add to it because my opinion will be completely the different side to what was mentioned. Like,
No wonder.
because we started with Claude, we started with Gemini, we used every single fancy, biggest pricing model. And now recently for some of the cases, for PR reviews, for like building some agents, generating some UIs, we started moving around the models. And the reason for that is like GLM works fine. It's not like it's just like 2 people project. Technically, it's like a big open source project, and then there is a whole government behind that. So like it's probably a bigger team than Gemini when it comes to that. And the reason for that is like it's way cheaper. It works faster for us. Our data and our queries and the code that we are using to generate is within our own virtual private network. It's never leaving like to the cloud. Especially, I guess, for India, if you're working on a fintech, do you want to send your data to USA, some Gemini? Sometimes you can, sometimes you don't, I guess. And another reason not to be like attached to one model is like our recent practices where we saw that like Gemini, for example, for our use cases is like outperforming Claude and OpenAI in every single metric when it comes to UI development. Like it's completely on a different level for our experience. Doesn't mean it would be same for you, but that's why the approach we are taking. We have AI gateway, and we try to kind of make sure we have accessibility to every single model possible, and even deploy it ourselves to track it out. Is it open source or proprietary? And then based on our experience evaluations, we will make a choice on which one we are picking for which agent.
Yeah, with the CVs being available so easily, you can track them and be more agile to go to production. So that's why I'm asking. Still, we do have the fear with all the tools available.
Yeah. So I see. Every other point that you understood, I'm sure that you agree to what they are. There is an approach to how they're doing it. But where will you break the ice with the client? How will you make him or her believe in your solution? Start the question from there. The way we do is the approach and the kind of confidence building the trust building, not even confidence, trust building that you start from the beginning with the client. The approach starts with taking one particular, see, everybody is very cautious about what they are trying to automate, right? It's very simple language. You sit in front of the client, the first thing he or she will ask, okay, you're automating this for me. Yeah, I know you'll do the best of class automation, you'll use the best of class tools for me. How will you give me the confidence that it's risk free and I'm not getting into trouble? That's very simple question. They're willing to invest as well. Huh? It's not that they don't want to. The first thing that we had, the approach, how you're going to go is going to be this garage approach, where both the client and you are getting into a partnership to break the ice of that siloed microservice that you want to automate for them. And that has to come with partnership. If you don't break it like that, that first approach is to work together in tandem, because there are certain things that you as a developer or a particular engineering team you can't do. The client only has to step in and do that, and that knowledge, that access, that domain intelligence is with the client. Of course, you can build it in their systems, etc., but you cannot penetrate it unless they partner with you. That is first thing. Break the ice with partnership. Second, whatever you're building, the confidence builds when they're seeing everything you're doing. Right. So that's something that we do. We have an AI-led model framework that we follow. And somewhere financial firms today are willing to approach, but not their critical systems. They are willing to get in. They know this is coming. They're starting, but they'll go as a microservices, micro agents on their platform. Then they will say, okay, it's working. Then they will slowly but steadily start allowing us to integrate. This is how we are trying to approach and break that model a little, but it's going to take time, especially the BFSI sector.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You get that? That's it. Okay, great. I think I would like to thank the panelists for giving your time, patiently answering the questions, and hoping that everybody got knowledge. Hello? Yeah. Okay. So I think I will be closing this session. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Kaushik. Thank you, Pramod. Thank you, Zelenas. It was great. And thank you,
Thanks
everyone,
everyone.
for being
Thanks
a
for
nice
attending.
set of audience.